there's a scene a little more than halfway into the film where Costigan is confronted by Costello about being a rat. So Costello thinks there's a rat, and he's pretty much been talking to all of his guys about it, and now it's Costigan's turn, and he meets him at the restaurant. This is a scene where Nicholson gives his famous rat monologue, but also at the end of the monologue, he bumps into the table and drops a gun that he had hidden on his lap the entire time, and he pulls out the gun, and he just taunts DiCaprio with it. And what happened was DiCaprio didn't even know about the gun. It was not planned by anyone except for Nicholson. Nicholson went to Scorsese and was like, for this take, give me a gun. I need a gun for this. So it wasn't planned, it wasn't written, and DiCaprio wasn't even expecting it. They were just rolling the scene again, and Jack was like, okay, I have something I'm going to do for you. And so you can see the fear in DiCaprio's eyes. It's kind of real because it was completely improvised, and he was not expecting Jack Nicholson to pull out a gun right there.
It's authentic. Next time you look at it, look for that look on DiCaprio's face, and it seems very authentic because it is authentic. And DiCaprio's such a great actor, and he's such a pro that he realized through the take what's happening, and he has to react to it in character as Billy Costigan, and he did a phenomenal job not blowing the take of his surprise. But I know I've heard stories of Nicholson doing stuff like that on set with, like, I think he brought a fire extinguisher to a take before or something like that. And then you saw, like, Jared Leto try to replicate this, like, Jack Nicholson craziness on set, sending people weird things for Suicide Squad, taking it to a weird level. But Jack Nicholson is just way better at it and a better actor.
And Jack managed to blend this humor along with this ruthlessness to Costello, and you can't help but love watching him on screen. Like, there's that scene of him where he just pulls a severed hand out of a bag like it's no big deal.
Eating lobster.
And he's eating lobster, and Costigan's sweating in the chair nearby. Like,
he's wired up.
I could get the fuck out of here. And then Mr. French goes, I thought it was nice that you asked him which hand he jerked off with.
It's so funny.
So it's kind of like he has moral standards in a way.
Yeah. And speaking of rats and Costello, ironically, despite the whole movie being about rats and all the talk about rats and Costello's obsession for looking for the rat and finding the rat and having his own rat, Frank is the biggest rat of them all.
The whole theme of the movie, everyone's living a lie.
He's been protecting himself and giving people to the feds, giving information to the feds, but he expects everyone else in his crew to be loyal and to be pure to him and his cause and his gang. And, like, Costello is a walking contradiction and a hypocrite himself. Mm. And it makes him a very weak character in my mind.
He's a very ironic character.
Because, he's the biggest rat of them all.
Mm. But it is a parallel to Whitey Bulger, who ultimately was an FBI informant just like Costello.
So they say.
But there's even reports that that Whitey Bulger had intimate relations with his FBI informer.
Wouldn't be surprised. I want to go back to the lead characters, Costigan and Sullivan, and these two characters both have very clear paths which inevitably intersect. You just don't know when it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. You know, Marty puts these two in very close proximity throughout the film, building tension until they finally meet. It happens first at William Costigan's interview with Dignam and Queenan, and also Colin Sullivan's promotion to the SIU Special Investigations Unit, which happens in the same office. And as Sullivan leaves the room from that promotion interview, Costigan is sitting right there at the door, unbeknownst to both of them. They're going to be mortal enemies soon. And the cool thing about the shot is, clearly, Colin Sullivan's very well dressed. He's very confident, presents himself in a very flamboyant way. Whereas Costigan's sitting down, he's like kind of dressed like in a preppy boy outfit with the beige slacks and dark suit coat. He seems unconfident, unsure of himself, and quiet. And he's just kind of sitting there, not talking to the beautiful receptionist right next to him.
He looks like a kid,
like Costigan. Yeah, so he looks like a kid just out of boarding school or something. And then that's the first time that this path of both of them starts.
It's ironic.
And then Costigan also developed a relationship with Sullivan's girlfriend, played by Vera Farmiga, Madeline. Costigan also almost makes Sullivan after Colin leaves the adult theater. Sullivan calls Costigan on Queenan's phone. They're both also at the raid at the end of the movie, at the drug deal. And when they finally meet, this is where Costigan comes in to get their identity back. And it's a very emotional moment for the audience because you've been watching both of their stories, both of their storylines, and they finally connect and they finally intersect with them inside of Sullivan's office.
It's ironic where they both die after they both have revealed themselves for their true nature. So when Costigan is killed, it's after he catches Sullivan, handcuffs him, and he's bringing him down the elevator. And so in this moment, Costigan is officially chosen his side and his path that he wants to walk on. He's a cop. He's not going to be an undercover anymore. He's going to turn Sullivan in now, and everything's going to become. Now he's going to become a normal cop, and his life's going to be much better. He's not going to have to pretend to be a thug and a gangster anymore. But then he's killed immediately when he finally chooses when he finally reveals his true path. And the same thing happens to Sullivan when he walks into his apartment and finds Dignam there waiting for him to kill him. He just sees Dignam and gives that simple all right, where he's pretty much admitting to Dignam, yeah, you got me, I'm a gangster. And then he's killed immediately. So they both reveal their true natures, and they're immediately killed for it.
When I first saw this in theaters, I know you had the exact same reaction to me. I was completely shocked when Costigan got shot in the head. You had been pulling for this guy like the whole freaking movie, and he finally gets to arrest Sullivan despite it being like a half borderline citizen's arrest. What is this, a fucking citizen's arrest? And you've been pulling for the guy the whole time because he's clearly the protagonist in the movie. And they're in the elevator and they're riding down, and Sullivan whines eventually, "Just kill me.
Just fucking kill me."
To which Costigan declares, "I am killing you." Then the door opens, then boom, Costigan's shot in the head. And this line of "just fucking kill me" and then "I am killing you," it's such an ironic kind of double metaphor where obviously Costigan doesn't mean he's going to like execute him.
Yeah.
He means he's killing him professionally, socially.
By turning him in.
Killing his life. He's
Yeah.
ending his life, and he's going to be in prison for the rest of his life. And although, yes, Sullivan survives, Boston accent coming out.
Survives.
Although Sullivan survives this scene and doesn't get shot, Costigan gets shot here. Sullivan's sloppy cover-up still leads to his own death. So even though he doesn't get killed here by Costigan, he still gets his life ended. And Costigan still is killing Sullivan here in this scene, revealing him and putting
it leads to Sullivan's death.
It leads to Sullivan's death, exactly. So it's kind of like a double ironic metaphor, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And then let's get to probably the funnest fact about this movie. And there's no way you notice it the first few times you watch this movie unless you're told about it. But there, in Scorsese's directing, you can see an X, like an X marks the spot. You can see X's in the backgrounds and sets of the film, and every scene where a person's gonna get killed, and every scene where a person talks about murder. And so I made a list of all the X's in the movie.
And the X's represent this person's about to die. If there's a character in a shot with an X, that means they're going to die.
It's also they're about to die, and also they're talking about someone dying.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's an X taped on the elevator right behind Costigan, which you see right before he's shot in the head. And then there are several X's behind Costigan at the airport, and there are several X's in the carpeting of Sullivan's apartment building. When Sullivan is being chased by Costigan, there's an X made with graffiti. In the beginning of the film, Costello's in silhouette and there's narration going on. There are several beams of wood that make an X right behind him. And in several scenes with Costigan and Sullivan, you can see there are several X's made on the walls based with lights that the crew used. After Queenan is thrown off the rooftop of that building, there are X's taped onto the windows of that building as he's falling down to the ground.
You're missing one.
What's the one I'm missing?
The citizen's envelope.
Oh, the citizen's envelope.
So when Frank Costello wants all his gang members to give all their personal information because he's looking for the rat, and obviously it's that iconic shot where the Irish gang member writes down citizens but spells it horribly wrong.
Citizens.
And Costigan fixes the spelling for him. He's like, "Citizens, you fucking R word."
Guys, citizens.
That envelope eventually gets crossed out.
Yeah.
Which it's another metaphor for Costigan's death.
You're right. And then another great takeaway of this film, which Scorsese does, which he has done in all of his films, is his ability to use popular music in a profound way to advance the scenes. And there's two songs in particular in this film that he uses to great effect. There's Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones, which he's used a couple other times in his films. He used it in Casino and Goodfellas. But he uses it in the beginning of this film, and it really sets up the world and the tone of the movie. And then, most famously for this film, he used Shipping Up to Boston by the Dropkick Murphys.
It became
a couple
iconic.
Of times. That was an iconic song in Boston for a couple of years when it came out.
It still is.
And it was used to great effect in this scene.
I think there's one more thing we should talk about on this movie before we move on, and that's the ending metaphor of the literal rat walking along the balcony.
So after Sullivan's shot by Dignam, Dignam leaves, and then the camera tracks from Sullivan's dead body and pans up to the window, and we see a little rat scurry across the railing.
And a lot of people hate it, and I even found online petitions for people asking for it to be digitally removed, which is hilarious to me that people think that Marty Scorsese would even consider a stupid fucking Kickstarter account to digitally remove something from his film.
How entitled can a person be to think that they can improve upon a Martin Scorsese movie?
Or that
the greatest filmmaker ever!
Or that the ending of this movie is such a detriment to their life that they have to change it. And you know what? Why did Scorsese use such a blatant metaphor? Why not? The film is about multiple rats. Why not end it with an actual rat?
I think it's fun.
I mean, it made me chuckle. I laughed at the end of it.
That's the thing, is it's a joke. It's funny. Because ultimately, all of the paths of these rats led to their deaths. So it's like...
And then you have the metaphor of power behind the rat of the golden dome of the State House, which means that no one even achieved what they really wanted.
There's no way a rat could ever achieve the true power of a position like that.